some of you do, but I got a call from Mindy Coke the other day, and so did Shirley Johnson, who was here, asking us to be zone leaders for the zone that Bob and Phil, and before them Pat had led. And the first thing I said to Mindy is that you should ask Shar, not me, you know. And she said, well, we can't have two women. So I said, well, you should have. And then the next morning, she texted me to say, I was looking at the bylaws the other night, and I found out that Zone 12, which we are, can have 3 zone leaders. So she invited Shar, which means that we really have our work cut out for us. There are how many, Shar? Probably 25 precincts in the zone that don't have precinct leaders. And it's been that way for as long as I have been a precinct leader. We just don't have them, and we need to get out there and get people, because I remember back when my Aunt Marion, I remember walking into her kitchen in 2004 after they stole the second election for George W. Bush, and she and Sam were sitting around the dining room table with a huge map of Delray Beach, and Marion was saying, we got to do better here. We got to do better. I mean, and at that time they had captains in the various areas, and she had her captains, and they turned out in 2008. They turned out in 2012, and we haven't turned out since, really. So if anyone in the room here or on Zoom wants to become a precinct leader, we need help. And if not, we still need help making phone calls and canvassing, even if you're not willing to do the precinct.
What does a precinct leader do?
There's a sheet on the table, maybe.
Yeah. Basically, a precinct leader is responsible for getting the vote out and educating the people that live in the precinct. And it's in one way it's daunting. I mean, when I first got down here, Marion and David were the seated precinct leaders where we lived, and Marion got my wife and me to do across street. Across street from us is the Chatelaine and Delray Shores, which is principally Haitian American, African American, and white. It's a sprinkling, but these were people that I didn't know at all, and we just started going over and knocking on doors, leaving literature, and right now the big push is to get people re-enrolled in vote by mail. I mean, I assume everyone in this room and on Zoom knows that if you voted by mail up until now, you're not registered to vote by mail anymore because of the law that they passed. You have to go back to the SOE and re-enroll yourself. It takes about 30 seconds. But if you don't do it, you're not going to get a vote by mail ballot. So we were all, Shirley and Shar and I were on a call or a Zoom with Mindy and the woman, Linda Rosenthal, who heads up all of the zone leaders. And they have this plan that they are rolling out to first text everybody, there are 180,000 people in Palm Beach County, 180,000 Democrats that were enrolled in vote by mail. And we don't know at this point how many have re-enrolled because we can't get the information from the supervisor of election. So they're moving forward with contacting those people by text. And then the next stage in that will be phone banking. And they hope to get down to the point at which each of the zones will have about 2,000 people to call, which is not, that's not a big deal, and the way the phone banks work is it doesn't matter if David calls and then he hangs up and then I call, there's no duplication. Anybody that has already been contacted is removed from it. So, and if you have a lot of people that are calling in, it's fast, and we can get those people re-enrolled. The equally important thing is telling people why they should vote, which is, and why they should vote for us, because a lot of people don't pay attention. There was an article in the Sun Sentinel that 2.5 million Democrats didn't vote in the midterms and in Palm Beach County. And DeSantis won by a little over 1 million, which was a landslide for Florida. But we had 2.5 million that didn't vote. One of the people that was profiled in the article said, well, I didn't vote because I didn't know that, I didn't realize that DeSantis was so bad.
Oh, no.
Well, how can you, that's somebody that doesn't read a newspaper, and maybe watches the local news, which is not really going to be covering how bad DeSantis is. Another guy said, I thought there was no point in taking a day off from work to vote because DeSantis was going to win. He didn't know that he could vote by mail. And so that's what precinct leaders, that's what we all need to do. But precinct leaders are, in a nutshell, responsible for turning out the vote and educating the people that live in the area that they've been assigned. So we have petitions up here that everyone should take. I don't know if you know about it, but a petition to get an abortion amendment on the ballot, a constitutional amendment that would essentially, as David wrote, it's exactly what you wrote back in March in the contract with Florida, that among the things Democrats would do if we get power back is pass a law that would essentially codify Roe v. Wade, and that's what this does. It prohibits any restrictions on abortion before 24 weeks. So grab one of those. And sorry,
You can't even tell you're pregnant after 6.
I know. So anyway, Angela.
And Caruso actually voted against it.
Yeah, he did.
Well, he voted against it because they allowed him to vote against it, so he can come back and say,
Well, I
but-
mean, DeSantis and all these men who make these rules have no concept of science.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the guy who's our Surgeon General is like a witch
Doesn't he have
doctor.
paid?
But yeah,
And they find out that he doesn't have the education he claims he does.
anyway, what? Oh, yes. June 3rd and June 24th, there's going to be a pizza party and a postcard party here in the office to send out, to fill out. We've done that before. Postcards, you address postcards. This one is to send to returning citizens to let them know that that there are pro bono attorneys available who can help them get registered to vote, which is, obviously a very important thing.
You mean for the felons or? is
Yes.
that the felons?
Yeah, anyone that was convicted of a felony is permanently disenfranchised, but the constitutional amendment allows them to register and vote. But then the Republicans passed the bill that said, oh, they have to pay their
Right.
fines and fees. And the state in many instances doesn't even know how much the people owe.
Right.
So I'm not sure how they're gonna,
That was Rick Scott.
Just send out people to arrest people.
that's right, they wanna.
They were told they could vote and they arrested them anyway.
Mhm. So, was there anything else I forgot, Sean? Good, okay, because Angela had other engagements at this time and was good enough to come and speak to us. If you don't know her, Angela Burns is one of the newly elected commissioners on the Delray Beach City Commission. And she was a former member of our board. And I think she's still a member of the club. So, yeah, right. And our Delray Democrat, Shar drops off 25 or more copies with her to distribute. So, without any, she can introduce herself, but Angela was a school teacher for forever here. And I am sure, I was never in her class, but I'm sure just knowing her, she was a marvelous teacher. And we actually did, Shar and I went over and did a cleanup at their school there. So let me turn it over to Angela. And again, Angela, thanks so much for giving us your time.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you for all those accolades. And thank you for inviting me. It is a pleasure to be here. And as he said, I am Angela Burns. I am a 58-year resident of Delray Beach. I've been here since I was 8 years old. Love this place. This is home. I did teach in the Palm Beach County School District for 34 years. That is the forever. Actually, this month is 1 year that I've been retired. I retired to pursue the position or the responsibility of running for a city commission full-time as opposed to part-time, which was a time I ran before. I am the mother of 3 children that I've raised here in Delray Beach. 2 grandchildren. Actually, I have 3 grandchildren, 2 of them that live here and 1 that lives away. She's an adult. And I've been involved in the community since I was a teenager, 19 years old. I think I joined the Peace organization, which was an organization that advocated for the underserved and, tried to work with code enforcement to not impose so many fines. So my husband and I were very, very active. And I've been that, as I said, since a youth. I did teach here locally at Village Academy for 23 years. I started my career at SD Spady. I did work in Boca for 10 years at Verde Elementary and Hammock Point. I did leave the school district for about 13 years and went to the bank. I resigned my position as branch manager of the West Boynton branch of Great Western to return to the school district in 1990. As I said, I've just always been an advocate for community, for those that were less fortunate, for those that wouldn't or could not speak for themselves and not having the resources. And proud to say that I was just elected as City Commission for Delray Beach, seat 4. The seat that our Commissioner Johnson, High Commissioner Johnson, termed out on. You know, it is just, it really is an honor and a pleasure. And I just want to thank, you know, I was on the board here at the Delray Democratic, and still am a member, and I do receive those newsletters and distribute them every month or whenever I have them. And I just want to thank you for your votes. If you voted for me, if you didn't, just understand that I'm looking forward to serving all of the Delray residents. You know, I just believe that, you know, as an educator, one of the things that I learned is to listen.
Motion detected at front door.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's moving outside, but Alexa is talking over me. But you know, I've learned that, you know, there's no one size solution for any problems that we have. And I know that we have a very diverse community. I know that the community needs are different in the different parts of our community. And I'm looking forward to working with each community individually and collectively to solve, you know, problems that we can solve together. I am a problem solver, a voice of reason, and, you know, I ran with a theme of change, and I'm really looking forward to that. So hasn't been 60 days yet. So I think that I did hit the ground running. Lots of changes have been made. Some of the lawsuits against the city by employees, by whomever, you know, some of those have been settled, and we have those off the books, and we're, you know, continuing to do that. We moved our time to accommodate some of our working residents to 5 p.m. So the meeting time will change as of October 1st to 5 p.m. For those persons that, you know, would like to come in and be a part of the meeting. What else? We just recently attended a goal setting meeting, and in that meeting got the opportunity to sit with all of the staff, which was really rewarding to me because, you know, I've been meeting people individually, and Delray Beach has a large body of people that work for. So this was an opportunity to get all staff people in one room, and that was very rewarding for me. We did come up with like 11 or so priorities that we wanted to work on as a commission. Let's see, including mobility, public space, community engagement, staff development and retention, sustainability, education, and there are a couple of others. And however, I did mention at our last city commission meeting that I would like to meet again so that we can narrow those down to like 3 or 4 that we can work on immediately and get working on those. One of the things that I'm most focused on right now, priority, is looking to finally get needed resources on West Atlantic Avenue for the residents living in the set. A grocer, you know, it's a food desert there. We've been wanting to have a grocery store so that we can provide fresh food and vegetables for our residents, a pharmacy, a medical facility, a medical and health facility, a financial institution, and more affordable housing. So one of my, and I guess I'll call it a pet project, is to, you know, make sure that we update whatever plan we need to update to make sure that we get going on that, and to include some affordable housing. It's very essential that we do that. So that's one of my priorities. Of course, education, being an educator for the last 34 years is a priority. And it's very concerning to me with this current passing of some legislation that will impact our schools tremendously with this $8,500 voucher that will be available, which will take monies from our school, because it will take students from our schools, from our public schools. So I'm really concerned about that. Don't know where that's going to take us. we're just starting to recoup from COVID-19 and the learning loss that was, experienced during that. And, schools are just now seeing those numbers, come back to some satisfactory numbers from that that serious. So now here we're faced with another, and I'm really concerned about that. So I'm looking forward to working closely with our education board, and I've served on that for 2 terms in the past, to see how we can help. What can we do as a city to support our schools? I know that, this is a district and a state thing, but, I'm just looking forward to working with our new educational coordinator to find out, how can we market our schools? How can we, what can we do to help our schools be successful here in Delray? I'm also, so that was the development of the West Atlantic Avenue and education. And then, of course, always a concern to me is our public safety. Just making sure that our police and fire have the necessary resources to continue to keep our city as safe as it is. I know we don't have any major problems. We do have some issues, and we're working on those, and I want to keep that as a major concern. And of course, our clean water. I've talked to our Mr. Hassan, and he's assured me that our water is a great quality now. We're passing the test and passing the marks on that, but we want to keep that a priority, so that as we're working to find ways to finance our new water treatment plant, so that we can continue to provide clean water in the future. So, as I said, I'm just looking forward to serving all residents in Delray with sensible growth, accountability, and transparent governance, and civic pride. And basically, that's it. And thank you for listening.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure there will be some questions, but I'm going to limit it to just 1 or 2, because we have, you had mentioned, the laws, the culture war, the education war that they are have launched against the people of Florida, and we have Senator Lori Berman joining us back, battle scarred from Tallahassee, who can talk to some of that. So why don't we take 2 questions, and so everyone can see, if you have a question, see and hear, just come up here and you can sit where I'm sitting, and then people on the Zoom will be able to see you. And if there are no questions, we'll just move on to Lori and Bob. Did you have one? Come on up.
Hello, my friend.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. And as I said to you at Pompeii a few weeks ago, once again, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you on the commission. So, Commissioner Burns, I'll call you Angela offline. Commissioner Burns.
That's okay.
Are there any conversations at this point regarding the future composition of the CRA?
Yes. So the resolution was read at the meeting on this week. I can't remember what. So Tuesday. So we're at Thursday already. Wow. So yes, the resolution was read. So the CRA will be a commission ran a CRA. And it will, we are entertaining an advisory, a 5-member advisory board. When the city commission took over the independent board 5 years ago, the position that they took with the commission and the two residents was stated that it was going to be a temporary situation. And the temporary situation never was addressed. And, you know, members of the community have been talking for years about returning it to an independent board, returning it to an independent board. And I did my research and I got documents that verified based on some information that the city attorney had given, that once you change it, the statute does not allow for you to actually change it to anything else except for the independent board. I'm sorry, for the commission board. So the way that it was operating in that temporary status should have been addressed some time ago, because according to the statute and according to the information received from the attorney, they were not abiding by the statute. So the only time you have those options is at the inception of creating a CRA. You have three options. You have the option of having it commission only, commission plus 2 residents, or commission and an advisory board. But that is supposed to be established at the time the CRA is established. Once you change it according to the statute, then it becomes the commission-run CRA and not any of the other 2 options. So we made a motion to move it to being in compliance. So as it is right now, the commission will be the CRA, and then we will have an advisory board as we have other city advisory boards. So the CRA director will be working on the criteria for that in the next coming weeks, and then we will be selecting an advisory board.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you.
And thanks, Angela. And that was a long question and a good one. Why don't we move on to Senator Berman? And thank you again, Angela, for giving us your time. And congratulations.
You are welcome, and thanks again. And I will stay on as long as I can. I know that I heard Senator Berman at the commission meeting, but I'm going to hang on as long as I can. It's raining now, so I'm kind of stuck inside anyway. So thank you again for inviting me, and I look forward to attending in additional meetings.
Okay. So Senator Berman, Lori, I don't see any scars on you, but I'm sure that they're inside. I mean, that must have been just completely brutal. But what we've been enjoying, and I've been predicting for over a year now, when I wrote DeSantis as Icarus, that he's flaming out. I mean, he's not flaming out in Tallahassee. You know, he can do what he wants there, but he's making a clown of himself for the nation. And I hope you see my T-shirt.
Yes.
That's cute. I like it.
Yeah, we want to hear about all of the bad stuff. I know you're going to be on the Boynton Club for the good, bad, and ugly, and I think most of it's going to be ugly when you talk. But so, thank you for coming, and the mic is yours.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad to share the stage with Commissioner Burns. I got to see her at the Delray meeting, and really excited to work with her. And she gave you a little preview about what's going on with the education, with the vouchers. We are now going to let every child in the state get $8,500. Every parent will get $8,500. Your child can go to American Heritage. Your child can go to Unity. They can already be going there. So it's not, they talk about money following the kid. These kids never had public school money at all, and now they're going to get access to public school money, and it is going to be a zero-sum game for our schools. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the bad bills and what happened. You know, we used to joke that when the Florida legislature met, it was the 60 most dangerous days in the state. And you know how there's always a little bit of truth in a joke. Well, this year it was the 60 most dangerous days in the state. We did have the good news is we had a very robust budget, also in large part thanks to President Biden. We took $40 billion of federal money. Our budget is $117 billion. Everybody voted for the budget because there are some great things in the budget. There are Everglades restoration, Indian River Lagoon. There's 5% increases for all state employees. There is money to put for kid care. There's money for mental health and opioid addiction. So the budget was one of the few bright spots. I brought home $23.5 million for projects in our area, including several in Delray that we spoke about the other day, including $250,000 for EJS, which you guys might be familiar with them. They run an after-school program for high school students and right on Atlantic Avenue. And if you're not familiar with them, they're a great program that you might want to get involved with. So the budget was great. And there were 1,800 bills, about 300 passed, and the vast majority of them pass unanimously. And I see Nancy's thanking me for referencing EJS, so glad to do that. The vast majority of bills are unanimous, but the 15% or so that are not are brutal. And this year, we used to have like a week or a day of tough bills. This year, it was nonstop. It was relentless. Every week, there was another bill that we would have to fight. And you know what we do in the legislature is we try and make a record, and we put all these things on the record so that people know. And if there are groups that want to bring lawsuits, we've got the record set for them. So let me talk about a couple of the really, really bad bills. And we do things that are very unconstitutional. And that's, to me is, I don't know why we do that. We take an oath to support the Constitution, and then we pass all these bills. And unfortunately, we used to have the Supreme Court as our backstop, but now that Governor DeSantis has appointed so many of the members of the Supreme Court, they don't help us with these unconstitutional bills. So the first bill that you've probably heard a lot about is the abortion bill. Right now, we have a 15-week abortion ban that was passed last year that's being challenged. That was an unreasonable bill to start with, and we've already seen why it's unreasonable. We've had women whose water has broken, and the doctors say, I can't do anything until you go into sepsis. I mean, we're seeing, situations. I hope my husband's going to get that. We're seeing situations, sorry about that, guys, my husband should pick up, where women's lives are at stake because of the 15-week abortion ban. And then we come back this year and we pass a 6-week ban. Now, the good news is it's not in effect yet. They're waiting for some court cases to be resolved, and I do believe they will be resolved, and they'll probably be resolved the way they want. So the 6-week ban could go into effect pretty shortly. There are exceptions for rape, incest, and human trafficking only up to 15 weeks, and pretty much ineffective because of the way that they've drafted them. You have to show a medical report, a court record, or other evidence of the crime of rape or incest. And we all know rape is an underreported crime, and it's probably not that exception is just for show, window dressing. And they also, as part of that bill, gave $25 million to crisis pregnancy centers, which you probably have heard about. They are basically fake centers, often right nearby an actual abortion center. And they try and convince women to carry their babies, and they give them false information, tell them things like they're going to get breast cancer. They have people who are doing ultrasounds who are not qualified, giving them the wrong weeks of how pregnant they are. Very disappointed to see the state, our taxpayer dollars going to these centers. And they're also very religious. which is, you know, and I think there's some violations of church and state with regard to those. Next bad bill, the gun bill. So we passed what's known as permitless carry. It's not open carry. It still is concealed, but you know, open carry could be on the table next. And what it basically says is you don't need to get a license anymore to carry a gun here in the state of Florida. And what happened with the licenses is there were two things that were occurring, and they're both going to be unnecessary now going forward. One was that there was a background check done when you got a license, and it showed if you're not eligible to have a gun. And there are a lot of people who are not eligible to have a gun if you have a history, if you've been mentally incapacitated, drug addicted, felonies. And now no one is going to stop those people from getting a gun. That's not to say that the law says they're still not allowed, but there's no one who's going to actually tell them, and we're not going to find out until they do something wrong, and then they're stopped. And then the other thing for the licensing is you have to be trained in the state, and now there is no training requirement. So think about that. People are going to be carrying lethal weapons, locked and loaded, and they will have zero training. And the argument for that was, well, the training's not good. So, you know, that's a crazy argument, because so that means let's not do it at all. I kept saying, well, then let's fix the training. Let's make it good so that people have effective training. But that was not something that they wanted to do. So that law goes into effect July 1, and it's going to be very troubling when it starts. We passed 5 anti-LGBT bills. The trans community particularly is the villain du jour of the Florida legislature, but certainly LGBT people are also included in that category. So one bill, we expanded the Don't Say Gay bill, which is the bill that says that teachers can't talk about sexual orientation or gender identity at all. And we saw the result of that bill last year. We have teachers who are removing pictures. If they're gay, they've had to remove pictures of their spouses. Rainbows have come down in classrooms. A valedictorian was told he couldn't talk about his sexual identity, and yet they say it's not Don't Say Gay. And so now they've expanded it. It only applied to 3rd grade. Now it goes to 9th grade. And actually the Commissioner of Education made it go to 12th grade also. So no classroom discussion at all. If a kid comes in and says, I have 2 mommies, the teacher has to like immediately stop the discussion and just say, okay, that's great. Go talk about it at home. It's really shaming people. It's horrible. Teachers also are not required to use correct pronouns under that bill. And significantly, that bill also has the book banning provisions in it. It says that any person who lives in the county can go and file a complaint to have a book removed. And when they file the complaint, it is immediately removed. And then there's an adjudication procedure after that. So it's just crazy. We've seen books banned and we've seen publishers been told that they have to change their books. They removed a reference to why Rosa Parks sat in the front of the bus and wasn't allowed. Just really crazy things on the book banning issue. The second slate of hate is what Equality Florida calls the anti-gay bill. The second one, which passed, and the governor signed all these bills yesterday, I believe, was the drag bill, which says that you can't take a child to a drag show and if there's lewd behavior, but that's already the law. This was just to intimidate people further. Nobody takes children to anything where there's pornographic or sexual activity happening. So it's just to demonize this group. The third one is the bathroom bill, which says that people have to go to the bathroom that they were born with. So transgender people are really, I don't know what they're going to do. If you've already transitioned and become a female, you're not going to go to a male restroom. So it's very problematic for the community. Fourth one is the sexual reassignment. So if you want to transition here in the state of Florida, you can, under this bill, if you have not already started, you can't do anything until you turn 18. And then after you turn 18, they even put some some restrictions in, and they're not allowing nurse practitioners to help you. You have to actually have a physician. So it's also, demonizing that whole community, really, really discouraging. Next bad bill on the slate of bad bills, immigration. So I'm sure you've heard about this bill. It's leading to people, truckers not even wanting to come here into the state. So a couple different things it does. We won't recognize driver's licenses from other states, which I think is blatantly unconstitutional, clear violation of the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution. Hospitals are going to have to ask people if they're unlawful, which is people are not going to go to hospitals. You're going to see people die because of this bill. You can't employ anyone who's an illegal alien, and you have to verify employment with the E-Verify system, but that's only if you have 25 employees. But I just read today that the agriculture and tourism industry are wondering how they're going to figure this out. You have to take DNA samples if there's somebody being held on an immigration detainer. So obviously they're thinking for the future. And you're not allowed to bring an unauthorized immigrant into the state. And I don't know if they're going to stop people at the borders. It's crazy what they're doing. Oh, and as part of that bill, if you remember, we gave money for that Governor DeSantis used last summer to send migrants to Martha's Vineyard, and we put another $12 million of our taxpayer money into that program for this coming year. Just don't get it. Don't get why we're sending, you just heard that DeSantis is sending people to the border. Why are we sending people to the border, police to the border, when we have our own issues here in the state that we should be dealing with? Instead, we're doing that. So those are a couple of the really bad bills that passed. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. There was a lot of preemption. We did a lot of things that hurt. Oh, we passed an election bill. So you should know about this. We're making it much harder for third-party organizations who register people, groups like the League of Women Voters. There's no reason why we need to be creating these barriers. Oh, and then we did the DEI bill, which the governor signed the other day, which says that college campuses can't teach any courses that discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion as part of their curriculum. So it's like, well, where do you draw the line between actual history and those kinds of things? Okay, and then June wrote a question on vouchers, so I'll go a little bit into the education bill, and then I'm going to conclude with a discussion of a good bill that I passed, and then we can open it up for questions and answers for everybody. So the school voucher bill that passed, the way it was passed, it says that every child will now can do what they want. So you can send your child to private school and you will get a voucher for the amount of what would have gone to the school. So it's $8,500 per child. Also, you can homeschool your child and you will get a voucher. You will get $8,500. So somebody could, if you had 4 kids, you're going to get $32,000 to homeschool your children with very little accountability on either the homeschools or the private schools. We are not saying to them they're not going to have the same kind of accountability that our public schools have, the same kind of testing requirements. I think they do have to pass like one test, and also no control over curriculum. There was a school in Illinois that was teaching neo-Nazi curriculum, and we will have no control. These schools could be teaching whatever they want, and this will be your tax dollars. So really concerning how it will all play out. The good news. So I passed a really good bill that I'm really, really happy about. And it's called Grayson's Law. It was based on a really horrific tragedy that happened in Broward County. And I think though that it won't go in vain because we are going to change the law for everyone for good. So what happened was Grayson was 4 years old. His mother and father had joint custody. His father was getting increasingly violent and making threats against the mother, including to dismember her. She went to court and asked the judge to stop the visitation because of the threats. She had proof of all the threats. And the judge said, no, he's threatening you and not your child. And you need to bring the child because he's the father. And she brought the child over. And sadly, the father killed the child and himself. So we changed the law. And now if there is a pattern of harassment or intimidation, it doesn't have to be physical abuse, which is, the way the courts mostly looked at it. They waited until there was actual physical abuse before they did anything. So now there can be, non-physical abuse, and the courts need to look at that when they're determining child custody and when they're doing injunctions, which is what she had filed an injunction so that she didn't have to bring him over. It passed in both chambers. We had full support. It's named for this boy, and his mother was there with us all the way through, getting it through. So I'm really happy that we have this change, and we worked with the family law section of the Florida Bar. They're going to be educating judges as well as parents, because often the parents can't afford a lawyer and they're going to court on their own behalf as pro se litigants. So really excited to see that. Very sad it took something like that to get it done, but it's time that Florida started to fix our domestic violence laws. So really happy we finally had a victory in that area. Also got a bill passed for lactation rooms in courthouses, excited, and the governor signed it. So very excited about that. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I will tell, I was pretty downbeaten, like you said, at the end of session. I was really feeling, downtrodden, but I knew that the abortion amendment was going to be coming out, the constitutional amendment, and we still didn't know the details. And now since session ended, it's out, and I'm so excited. This is like a game changer, guys. We all need to get these petitions and get them out and get it done. If we can get this on the ballot, I truly think it could pass in the state. And that would be just so amazing. And then the other thing I'm really excited about is Donna Deegan's victory last night, or the other night, in Jacksonville. And I think it shows that there's still a very good path forward for good Democratic candidates. And we just got to keep working and plugging away, and we're going to make changes, because the present regime is autocratic and authoritarian and not for freedom, and we need to keep getting that message out. There's no freedom in the state. It's only freedom for them to say and do what they want to do, not for anyone else. So let's, but there's hope, and we got to keep working together, and I think we'll get to where we need to be if we just, keep our focus on the abortion amendment and finding good candidates for seats.
Okay, I have a question, a specific question, but first I saw someone in the chat wrote that we referred to, and that was just a mistake, that it was held in the offices of the Palm Beach County Democrat Party. It should have been Democratic Party. We all know that that's something Republicans like to say, and Jamie Raskin had the best answer to that. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see it. It was good.
So can we call you the Banana Republican Party? My question was, and it's come up, it's very present for us here in Palm Beach County, because as we try to re-enroll the 180,000 Democrats that had been enrolled in vote by mail, VAN is not giving us information about who is re-enrolled. And in the past, you just put in the request, whether it was to the state or the SOE to Wendy Link. And we did everything that we thought we need to do, that we're supposed to do. We did a couple of submissions. Bob Averack had a conversation with someone in the SOE, and he said that they are not allowed by law to give out information, like files to be put into VAN on vote by mail enrollment until 60 days before the election. And I said, that's crazy. I mean, was there anything in all these awful laws? And I read them and I didn't see anything. Bob found something in some, it wasn't a law, but it was some procedure that said that made an exclusion to that rule if you were a political party. So, I mean, we think that that's what it is, but I thought I would just ask you if you know of anything like that. Okay, good.
No, I haven't heard anything about that yet. This is the first I'm hearing it.
Okay, good.
But I think there are some exclusions for political parties, so Van should be able to be getting that information, I think.
Yeah, no, we really need to, and apropos what you were saying about the being cautiously optimistic, I guess, there were 2.5 million Democrats in Palm Beach County who didn't vote in the midterms, and that's on us, not getting them out, but it's also on them, that they didn't know. They didn't know. One woman said, I didn't know how bad DeSantis was. I mean,
right, you're right. I mean, we need to get, people should know, and unfortunately, it's also what I said about candidates. I mean, I love Charlie Crist, but we could have had a better candidate, and I thought Val Demings was amazing, but people didn't come out for her either. So I don't know. I mean, we need to get really strong candidates. That's the only way we're gonna be successful. People just not excited by our candidates at all last time.
well, not only not excited, I had a committee man. I got in a Facebook debate with him during the primaries, and he said, I'm not going to vote for him. He was a Republican. And I said, he was a Republican 15 years ago. No governor in the history of the state got more disenfranchised voters re-enfranchised than Charlie Crist, but more than any Democrat. I don't care. He was a Republican. I am tired. And what you just said, I'm not excited. It's more old white men or whatever. And then he said, if he gets the nomination, I will not vote, and I will tell everyone I know to not come out. And then and it goes right down.
Well, look what we got. Look at the alternative. I mean, isn't that Joe Biden's line? Don't compare me to the thing, but compare me to the alternative. Yeah, well, and that's what we got to play up with people. Even if we don't get the candidates that we want in the end, we still have to make sure that people at least vote, because we've got to. If the only way to fire people up is to show them how bad DeSantis is, then we got to do that too.
And I think he's helping us do that. I think that
that's true.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville showed us that, and I really thought, I wrote a couple of articles. Could Charlie Crist be our Joe Biden? I mean, it was the same. You had a lunatic on the other side, and you had a guy that was a 3-time loser. Biden, his third try, he finally gets it, and it was comparing him to the alternative. And I guess Charlie didn't do that enough. But
yeah, well, Charlie also didn't have money. Money was a big problem in the last election. They had so much money, and we didn't. And that's another thing we need. We're grassroots, but we need money too.
Well, Mindy Koch has been really pushing on that. She's been saying, and asking people, did you send money to Wisconsin? Did you send money to Pennsylvania? Yes, yes. Did you give money to the DEC? No, and people are starting to do that. And I think that after Jacksonville, maybe the National Party will, see
I
that.
hope so. I hope so.
Are there other questions?
I see Nancy Shannon has her hand up too, and I see June is waving her hand too.
Yeah. Okay, June, why don't you need to unmute June and then Nancy.
Okay. Everything you just said goes right through us all, but very quickly, getting back to the vouchers, I wrote I had actually wanted a question. I'd like to know, I believe that this is unconstitutional. I'm not a lawyer. I've just done as much research as I can. The voucher proposal is two things. One, it's racist. And the second thing, it's an attempt to decimate the public school system. And those things are obvious, of course. And to throw us back into white, Christian, straight, nationalistic philosophy for our kids. My question is, can you look into what can be done legally based on, for example, Brown versus the Board of Education as just one? Plus, we don't have time now, but there were lots of court decisions on things like busing and so forth and so on. It just, from my non-legal quick review, that this is unconstitutional. Despite
there is
the governor to act like a king.
The unions, the FEA, the school union, usually brings a lawsuit based on any of these laws that pass.
Yes,
and I will tell you, they end up losing because now the courts are controlled by Governor DeSantis. So yeah, you're probably right. It probably is unconstitutional. It's probably a violation of church and state. I mean, we're giving money to religious schools. There's lots of different reasons why it's unconstitutional, and they bring great lawsuits. But I wouldn't depend on the courts. They're not our savior anymore. They're not going to be there for us. So we just have to do whatever we can, to mitigate these bills and to try and make them less bad. And that's what we've been doing in Tallahassee. But it's discouraging. I agree with you. These things shouldn't be done.
Thank you.
Sure. Nancy.
I just, one, I know there's some questions about returning citizens, but as to my question, it's really confusing. Like when I read about the Don't Say Gay in the papers, sometimes it says through 8th grade, sometimes it says through 12th. And I heard you say that our esteemed education commissioner said it's through 12th, but like the papers are not getting it right. I mean,
yeah. So, well, the bill we passed is through 8th grade. So that's where the confusion arises. Our bill is only through 8th grade, but the commissioner has already issued an order saying it applies through 12th grade. So I think it's going to overrule our legislation or add to our legislation. So it's going to apply all the way through. Basically, and it's horrible because it's to shame people, and it's to shame their parents and their relatives, and there's no reason for it. It's really, and when we ask them and they won't define what gender discrimination is or what sex. We ask them to define sexual orientation, and they won't say it's homosexuality or heterosexuality or asexuality. They won't even use those words, because once you do that, you're clearly stating that this is a bill against gay people, because they all come up and they say there's nowhere in the bill it says gay. Well, it talks about sexual orientation. Isn't that gay or whatever your sexual orientation is? And they just are so duplicitous about the way they have handled this whole situation. It's awful. I do want to talk about returning citizens.
Oh, good. That was going to be my other question.
Yeah. So what happened in the elections, it was amazing. When we had the elections bill, we had the Secretary of the Elections, Cord Bird, there, and I was in that committee meeting. And we asked him at the time, we're like, what can our returning citizens do? And they're like, oh, well, we have tons of lawyers who are there, and you just call up and we'll tell you if you can vote and what you have to do. And we're like, really? Because we've been asking for that for years, and give us the phone number. So they gave us the phone number. It wasn't right. Then they gave us another phone number. So supposedly we have a phone number that returning citizens can call. It's at the Department of Elections, Secretary of State, and you can call and they will tell you if you are allowed to vote and what you can do to be allowed to vote. So I'm really happy. I can try and get that number. I didn't write it down at the time they gave it to us, and people were actually calling the number at the time it came through, and finally it is a real actual number. And there are attorneys there and their purpose is supposedly to help people. So I think that we're going to see some positive signs now that they have finally put in place a procedure to help people.
Wow.
Okay, so I'll try and get that number. I see somebody wrote, yes, get the number. So we'll try and get it and give it to Michael.
I'm sure you remember the opening of Hinkle's opinion on 7066, where he laid out, it was the driest, most devastating opening to a opinion I ever read, describing the situation in Florida and how you have to pay a fine or your fees, and the state of Florida doesn't know exactly how much you have to pay, and they expect that they will know by 2028,
Great.
and so there is this initiative now that the league is doing.
I saw, that's great.
And at first I asked, I didn't understand what they were going to be doing that we hadn't done or tried to do before. And I understand this pro bono lawyers that these returning citizens can contact, but maybe now they can contact the number that or maybe the pro bono lawyers can contact that number and get that information.
Right, correct, exactly. I mean, I think we really put them we said, what are you doing to help these people? You're making it, because also part of the bill, in the bill, it actually says that even if you get a card in the mail, it doesn't mean that you can vote, which is crazy. I mean, because they're trying to undo what they did, where they gave people cards and then arrested them for saying they shouldn't be voting. So we said, well, if you're going to say that in the bill, then you have to help people and let them know if they're allowed to vote or not. So now they claim they're going to. We'll see how it all works out. They're pretty duplicitous, like I said. Marion, you asked a question about, I don't think that was in the bill that they can overturn any supervisor's opinions. I'll read the question out loud. Let me find it. Chat. The question was a bill passed in Florida giving the legislature the right to overturn the certification of the votes by the supervisor of elections? I don't believe so. I don't think that was in the election bill at all. Yeah, so, and we only did one election bill, which was enough, which was unnecessary given that they all claim what a perfect election we had last time, but they still go out of their way to hurt people. But mostly they're doing it by making penalties for organizations that are collecting ballots. That was what they mostly went after in this last round, unfortunately, of elections bills.
So John Page has something in the chat about separating out the fines and fees from the sentencing section, and that's something that was an initiative that Dave Arenberg, his office, and Carrie Howat, the public defenders, that was a couple of years ago that they were working on it. I don't know if it is still ongoing. I don't know. Nancy might know, actually, because she was very heavily involved in that. But
yeah, no, I mean, I think we're making progress. Unfortunately, they you know, it was such a good constitutional amendment and they really were scared of it. And so they did everything they can to make it as tough as they can. But I think we're gonna make some progress now and hopefully get these people registered who are entitled to vote and should be allowed to vote. And yeah.
And they know
There,
that most of them are not going to vote Republican, which is why what Charlie Crist did was so admirable. I mean, he was already a Reno by then, but he you know, it was not in the interest of a Republican to be letting 1.5 million people who were going to be disproportionately Democratic voters back voting.
can you hear me? I don't know if I'm muted or not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're still doing it in Palm Beach County. They're not like advertising it the way they were like before everything kind of clamped down. So that's my understanding. You know, of course, I hope everything changes and gets better, but we have read things that aren't very encouraging. But I mean, I think if you know someone and they had a felony in Palm Beach County, you could call.
Yeah, well,
But they're not like broadcasting it. That was my last conversation with that.
My experience with that was when we were canvassing, some guy came over. This is, you know, really just after the bill had passed. It was in 2020. And he said he'd been arrested, but he paid his fine, but he's afraid to do this, you know.
Of course.
I called the number at the public defenders. They transferred me to some attorney who was driving in his car and took the call and said, email me. He gave me his email address. Email me, you know, the details of this guy. In the morning, the next morning, I had a picture of the release, or, you know, the picture of the guy, and sort of like stamped, paid in full is fine. So we got him registered, or did he? We did get him registered, but he refused to vote in that election because he said he was afraid of what Trump was going to do.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, 2 years later we have the perp walk, people in their underwear, courtesy of our.
I see there's a question about union membership. I'm happy to answer that one. That was another of the really bad bills that passed this law this year. So they attacked unions really badly. I mean, worse than ever. And they normally they don't succeed. But what they did is they took out the police and the firefighters and some of the public safety, the corrections officers. And because they took them out, they were successful, because those are the groups that traditionally have been that the Republican Party cares about. And who they really went after was the teachers and any other, you know, public service workers. And what they said is that they have to have 60% of their members agree to be part of the union, or else they'll be decertified. And they can no longer have the union dues come off of your paycheck, just like if you gave to the United Way or your health care. You're not allowed to do that anymore. So that's going to make it really difficult for the unions to collect dues. So that bill is a very big union busting bill. The unions are already at work. They're trying to make sure that they hit and they also were required to have an annual audit by a CPA, which some of these unions are really tiny, and that audit will cost like more than their entire budget. So the unions are at work. They're trying to make sure they hit the 60% thresholds. They're trying to figure out how they're going to collect the union dues, but it was terrible. It's a really, really bad bill. And it's, you know, because it's retribution, because the teachers unions have traditionally supported the Democratic candidates, and really, really discouraging. And I'm worried about the fate of our unions in the state after that bill. really sad.
And-
He asked about the diversity, equity, and inclusion and how it's going to be implemented. Hard to say. I mean, I think what's going to happen is it's going to have a chilling effect that teachers are just going to be afraid to even talk about systemic racism, and which is what the bill says you can't. The bill says you cannot talk about systemic racism. So it's you know, some of our teachers are going to be leaving, teachers, you know, and our kids aren't going to learn real history, unfortunately, because of bills like that. And we need to change. We need to change at the top, because this is all coming from the top down, unfortunately.
Michael,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Lori, what do you think with the Disney DeSantis?
Oh yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so we gotta get that word out, guys. Let's keep spreading it. So here's Florida, this quote business friendly state, attacking one of the largest businesses in the state and really attacking them. I mean, one of the last bills we did on the last day was on their monorail. I mean, they are going crazy. So now the Department of Transportation is supposed to be able to inspect and be in charge of the monorail at Disney. There's only been like one problem ever at Disney with the monorail in all the years and all the millions of people who ride it, but they're going to put the Department of Transportation in charge of it. And so today in the news, you saw Disney announce that we're going to bring employees here and build this $1 billion facility in Lake Nona. And they reneged on it today, and they said they're not going to do it because of changing circumstances. So if anybody talks about this state being business friendly, you talk about Disney. You tell them it's not business friendly just because they said that they support their employees who are gay and that they believe in diversity and equity and inclusion. The governor has nonstop attacked them, nonstop, any single way, any way, you know, starting from the dissolution of the district now to the regulating the monorail. I mean, it is out of control. And you need to just spread that word, because it's antithetical to everything that, you know, they say they're doing. And it just points out the hypocrisy and the lack of freedom that we have here in the state.
I read the complaint, Disney complaint, or part of it, beautifully written.
It is.
And the paragraph where they said, again, it was like Hinkle's. They just laid it out, and then this is the most blatant form of viewpoint discrimination that this court is likely to ever see. I mean, they had people say, "Oh, we'll build a prison next door," but what do you? I mean, you're still dealing with the DeSantis judges. Well, this is in federal court, but once it goes up to the 11th Circuit,
it's the Trump judges. Yeah,
6 of the 11 judges there. So,
right.
But it seems, I've told people, it seems to me that it is so egregious that it would be hard for a court with
well, and the interesting thing is it also kind of like it puts them in the position of overturning Citizens United, because we've said corporations are people now. Right. So if you're going to have to say that they're not a person in order to say they don't have a right to free speech. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out on that issue. And that the way they framed it so well to address that issue. I'm really, I read the complaint also. It was excellent.
But there was one thing in it that surprised me, unless I misread it. We all know that they punked DeSantis by passing those agreements the day before the new board was appointed. But what I didn't know, and it seemed the complaint said, that when the legislature passed that, they and approved the appointment, they also said that all agreements that were in existence as of that time were enforceable. Not knowing that they had just said that the agreement that they agreed, the backhand deal, they just approved that.
Well, they had to do that because there were all these debt agreements that, there were all these loans, and if those loans went away, it would have been catastrophic. So they had to say that all those agreements stayed in effect, and it did affect the agreements that they had made right beforehand. So anyway, I think we gotta close up here a little bit. It's getting late. And it's been a long day. But I'm so happy that I got the opportunity to meet with you. Hopefully we'll do something in person in the future. And keep working hard, guys, because this is our state, and this is it.
Yeah.
Things are, we've got some glimmers on the horizon, and we got to make them happen.
Good. Thank you. Thanks so much, Lori.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Shut us down. Oh.
Two, one.